How's it going, everyone? Happy Gamescom opening night live with Jeff Keighley. I'm just kidding, but really, I'm super excited to see that I'm finally vindicated in my feelings on the Outlast trials. So we just got a new trailer, actually for the first time in about a year, unless you count the behind-the-scenes stuff, and I pretty much got some confirmation on one of my theories that I've had working for over a year now. You can go back to my videos and check it out, but for right now, let's get the big thing out of the way. The one concrete new piece of information outside of some new, beautiful gameplay that we'll have, and that's that there will be a beta running Halloween weekend, which will be a closed beta from October 28th all the way through November 1st. So just that weekend, those 3 days, but hopefully we'll be able to get in, or some of us will. Obviously we won't be able to talk about it, but I really hope I can get in. Red Barrels, sign me up, I'm right here. I've been talking about the game forever now. I love it, but I know I'm not some big boy, so hey, it is what it is. As for new information, that's all we officially have. But as I said, there's one thing in the trailer that might go over people's heads that I'm really excited about, something I've been saying for a long time that needs to happen, and it looks like it actually is. So with that being said, let's go through a trailer breakdown of the video, and I'll get through that. So go ahead and subscribe if that's what you want to do. I have other videos on the Outlast trials breaking down all the other information we have. Some behind the scenes stuff where we got to see the HUD a little bit, and that was super exciting, and so I'll maybe link those videos down below. I also cover other games like the day before, but whatever, we're getting into fucking Outlast. That's what we're doing. So the whole trailer is set up in the sense that it's like a Murkoff Corporation guide to reprogramming someone and how they think and what they are, much like some of the stuff that they were doing in the first game. So that's kind of how, like, this is the early days tying into that, but we'll see how it goes from there. But anyways, the first step is Dispensing of Existence. So for instance, they talk about in previous videos and trailers where you're going to be getting homeless people off the streets, people that no one care about, political criminals, I think was mentioned at the end of the video even, just people that no one cares about. And that's very much in line with the MK Ultra kind of idea of this. And then from here, we just get a couple shots of gameplay. We get to see the Gooseberry lady return. She's the one that has the daddy issues. She's got the little puppet on her hand that has a saw blade in the mouth of the goose. So that's pretty interesting. But really nothing too crazy here that's different, just new locations. And the game looks very good. I really enjoy this. We've got the guy kind of faintly talking in the background. You can't hear well. But the next step is to basically create control. So you immediately see cops as mannequins in the background and then bars on like a jail cell, as well as the character that I'm most interested to face, and that's the overindulgent cop, and that's his name is Coil. He's got some electro stuff going on as well. But then we see some of the presumably player characters getting tied into chairs and being forced to watch something. A lot like the stuff that's happening in the first game, if you'll remember, with the Rorschach test stuff going on in that, or whatever it was. But here, as we move into the third step of assaulting their identity, we see phrases like, you are an adult, you want to stay, things that make you second guess that when you hear it enough, much like Reek from Game of Thrones or Theon Greyjoy, when you hear something enough, it becomes true. But next up, we get to see some new interesting gameplay. We're actually pushing someone who I don't think is another player character. We're pushing an NPC on a cart, on a rail system, into like an electric fence that would be like a torture device, and we are being forced to push this lever and hurt this person. And clearly you can see that the game is already going for both the actual physical horror of your own character being in danger, but also the kind of psychological horror of dealing with the things that you're going to have to go through. And there's many shots throughout the trailer with very similar things going on. There's like a mannequin baby that I don't know what they're going to want you to do with that, but there's things like that throughout the trailer that's really intriguing to me. And that leads right into the next thing, and that's the establishment of guilt. And it's in this section that I see a lot of fears that I think are really interesting. For instance, there's quite literally the dentist section. There's a nun walking around on like a wire thing. It's not a real nun. And then, of course, there's gore with Mother Gooseberry once again. But something really interesting here in the flashes, as I was pausing, I saw something that wasn't human. Now, whether or not this is a hallucination of some kind, or it actually is human, there's a creature here in this scene, and that's something very, very, very interesting. We once again get to see the player doing a few more things than they've done in previous games, for instance, laying down the mine, something I broke down already, but then also throwing a projectile, something that I don't think have officially seen yet. And then after that, we get our good friend Mr. Coil to come up and test out one of those nice little mines for us. After that, we get our introduction to a new state of view. It's like an infrared view where we can kind of see skeletons through walls and stuff like that. I'm not sure what exactly is being highlighted, but I'm pretty sure the switch that's shown just before that is also a part of that, because if you notice on there, it does kind of say Oculus to some kind, Y, and then on or off switch. So I think that's what it is. You have to keep in mind this is set during the 1950s, so technology isn't what it is now. And to kind of butt into the next section of Progress and Harmony, we get to see very Last of Us style, one character standing over a very tall ledge, reaching down to bring up another player to kind of help them up, and that's where you have to work together, just like Progress and Harmony. After a few very grotesque shots, as well as a sexy nurse, I can just tell she's sexy under that mask, we go right into Self-Betrayal, and this is where things get really interesting. We get to see the player doused with some kind of gas from one of the enemies here, and then we immediately start hallucinating to some degree, or having some kind of nervous shakeout breakdown. But keep that in mind that the player is still hallucinating as we go into these next gameplay segments, which of course leads into step 7, the subjugation of perception. We see from one player's viewer perspective as they're holding down someone with gas on the ground, and then we switch perspective to the other player as they're holding a cross, almost protecting themselves as they shove off the other player, and that's where things get really interesting. There is to some degree PvP in the game. I don't know how they'll pull it off from a story perspective of not betraying your friends like if you're in a Discord call, but it must be that when a player is at odds with another player, the only way they can get their experience points or progression points for their upgrades is to actually do something to harm the other players. We see a little bit more cooperation among the players as one character raises up the door while the other player slides under, which is another new gameplay mechanic for the Outlast trials, which that's awesome in my opinion. As much as they can go into the fluidity of moving around, I think that's where the series needs to go next, especially in a single player setting. But this is going to be really cool as well. And then as we move into step 8, we get the doctrine over person, which basically means that you're going to believe whatever you're told over now what you originally were as a human. So everything that we've come full circle on, you're beginning to become reprogrammed. And as this is shown in the trailer, you get some more grotesque stuff going on, but then you see these 4 capsules, meant to represent the 4 players of course, exiting whatever level they are in, going back to their jail cells or their lab chambers, whatever you really want to call it, or whatever they actually are. As I've covered in previous videos, this is where we'll meet one of the characters of the game, Mr. Noakes, and he will be able to provide us upgrades in some form or another and probably sell us stuff like those mines that we have and other consumables such as the cross. Regardless though, in our time between these levels, there should be quite a bit to do, and if we get to hang out with the other players in that meantime, maybe there could be a social element to it. I guess we'll have to wait and see though. We go into step 9, and that is of course Rebirth. And for that, we just get a really quick cut of the whole trailer that we've just seen, leading all the way back to the flyer that introduced us to this place. And that's where you see, someone who's obviously homeless or something is grabbing a flyer because they have nowhere else to go. But one thing that is mentioned on the flyer that I didn't notice the first time around, but upon re-looking, it does say that men and women of any race, religion, class, or political persuasion stop by one of our convenient volunteer centers before the opportunity is gone forever. What I'm really thinking here is I really hope that since we're going to be spending time with these characters, doing whatever, we need to be able to make our own character. Whether it's a very simple, skin color, perhaps even voice when we grunt, or stuff like that, I think we should definitely be able to create our own character. Maybe that's just me, but that's what I would really like to see. Now, that's really it for the trailer. As I already mentioned, there's going to be the beta running Halloween weekend, but there are some things that I was really wondering about. First off, we didn't see any night vision gameplay, so I'm really curious just how often that will actually be used, which is kind of sad if it's going to be taking a drawback in this game. But then also, it said that you can play this game single player or multiplayer. Of course, multiplayer is the big benefit of this. You're going to be getting a probably lesser version of the game to some degree, but the Outlast series has been single player up till this point. I wonder in situations like those high jump areas where you need to help each other up or hold the doors open to slide under, how do you get through those areas without it? I doubt there's going to be AI, and especially with gameplay mechanics where you fight against each other for certain stages, I really wonder how this is going to go. Is it going to be a neutered experience in single player as opposed to multiplayer? I don't know, but I really hope not. And I'm also really hoping that it's more beneficial to play with friends than randos online, but I really hope that if I want to solo queue up into some Outlast trials, that's something that I can do. Either way though, that's been it for me guys. That's everything you need to know about the new trailer for the Outlast trials from Gamescom opening night live. Last year I covered the last video and it was like 4 minutes long. This one's a little bit longer because guess what? I'm not going on a flight to Texas this time. I'm really excited to see what we'll know next. Hopefully we'll know the release date before the end of the year. Obviously the game's coming out in 2023 at this point. There's no way around that. However, I believe December 8th is the Game Awards, and I think we could get a release date then for probably March. That would be my guess at this point. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching this video. If you liked it, go ahead and subscribe. Check out one of my other videos. I'm starting to do more of like indie or smaller game showcases where I'm going to be doing a different game for each video. And then I also like to do other things like Let's Play content. Oblivion, one of the best games of all time. Dark Souls, that's the other one I'm doing right now. But then if you're not into that, you're into the longer form stuff, I have one retrospective on my channel right now, and that is Firewatch, one of my favorite games of all time. But then after that, the next game I'm doing guess what? Alien Isolation, baby. It's kind of in your wheelhouse if you're doing into horror, so maybe you want to wait around for that. It's going to be a super long video, and that's why I'm putting it off. But that's it for me. Thank you guys so much for watching. Yeah, bye.